Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to discover you officially don't exist anymore? Drop a comment below if you have ever felt invisible to your own family. This story will show you the difference between being ignored and being completely erased. The pharmacist looked at me like I was a ghost haunting her Tuesday afternoon. Madam, I cannot fill this prescription. Our system shows you passed away 4 months ago. I was holding my arthritis medication bottle, the same prescription I had been picking up for 3 years at Peterson's pharmacy. My hands started shaking. Not from the arthritis, but from something colder, deeper. Something that felt like ice water spreading through my veins. What did you just say? She turned her computer screen toward me, and I could see my own name staring back. See, Eleanor Hartwell, deceased the 15th of March, 2025. I am really sorry, but I cannot dispense medication to someone who is legally dead. I am standing right here. The young woman, she couldn't have been older than 25, looked genuinely distressed. I know you are Mrs. Hartwell, but the computer system links to state records. According to this, you died from complications of pneumonia at Mercy General Hospital. I had never had pneumonia in my life. Never been to Mercy General. At 74, I would dealt with plenty of bureaucratic nonsense over the years. Mixed up insurance claims, lost paperwork, computer glitches that took weeks to resolve. But this felt different. This felt intentional. Who reported my death? She clicked through several screens, her pink manicured nails tapping nervously on the keyboard. It says here the death certificate was filed by Rachel Morse, listed as next of kin and holding power of attorney. Rachel Morse, my daughter, the child I had raised alone after Harold died, working double shifts at the textile factory to pay for her dance lessons and college tuition. The woman who used to call me every Sunday, used to bring my grandson Kevin over for birthday dinners and holiday celebrations. The daughter who hadn't answered my calls in 3 months. When your own daughter reports you dead to collect your life insurance, what do? Fight back from the grave. The walk home from Peterson's pharmacy took twice as long as usual, not because my hip was acting up, though it was sending sharp reminders with every step, because I kept stopping on the sidewalk, trying to make sense of what I had just heard. Deceased. The word bounced around my head like a pinball, hitting every painful memory of the past few months. Rachel's increasingly rare phone calls, Kevin's apologetic voice when he canceled our lunch dates, the way my neighbor Mrs. Chen had looked at me with pity last week, asking if I was holding up okay during this difficult time. I had been feeling forgotten lately, sure. My daughter barely called anymore. My grandson was always too busy with college. But forgotten and dead were two very different things. One was neglect, the other was erasure. The duplex I had been renting for 8 years looked smaller somehow. As I approached it, shabbier, like it was already preparing for my absence. The landlord had mentioned something about changes coming, but I had assumed he meant renovations. Now I wondered if he had been told about my supposed demise too. I fumbled with my keys, my hands still trembling from the shock. The arthritis medication I couldn't get would have helped with the joint pain, but it wouldn't touch the deeper ache that was spreading through my chest. Inside, everything looked exactly the same: the faded floral couch where Harold used to read his newspaper every evening, the kitchen table with the ring stains from decades of coffee mugs, the photographs lining the mantel, Rachel's high school graduation, Kevin's first birthday, Harold in his army uniform before we were married. All evidence of a life lived, a life that apparently no longer existed on paper. I sat down heavily in Harold's old chair and picked up the phone. My fingers dialed Rachel's number automatically. Muscle memory from years of weekly check-ins. Hi, you have reached Rachel Morse. I am unable to take your call right now, but please leave a message and I will get back to you as soon as possible. The same cheerful voicemail message she had had for years. She used to answer when I called, used to visit every Sunday after church, used to care whether I was alive or dead. Apparently, she had made her preference known. I hung up without leaving a message and dialed Kevin instead. My grandson, now 21 and finishing his junior year at State University. He had been the light of my life since the day he was born. The one family member who still seemed to enjoy my company, Grandma L. His voice sounded surprised, cautious. Everything okay? That is what I am trying to figure out. Honey, have you talked to your mother lately? A pause that lasted just a beat too long. Yeah. Why? About me? Another pause, longer this time. I could hear music in the background, voices. He was probably in his dorm room, studying or hanging out with friends, living the normal life of a college student who didn't know his grandmother had supposedly been dead for 4 months. Grandma, are you feeling all right? You sound worried about something. I was more than worried. I was starting to understand that whatever was happening, Kevin didn't know about it, which meant Rachel had been careful, strategic. She had orchestrated my death without involving the one person who might have questioned it. I am fine, sweetheart. Just wondering when you might visit next. Well, Mom said you weren't really up for visitors right now, that you needed space to process some health issues. She said the doctor recommended keeping things quiet for a while. Process health issues. What health issues I had my annual checkup 6 months ago. Dr. Rodriguez had pronounced me in excellent health for my age, blood pressure stable, heart strong, mind sharp as ever. What exactly did she tell you? Just that you had been having some problems. Memory stuff. Maybe some confusion. She said it was best if I didn't call for a while, didn't stress you out with too many visitors, memory stuff, confusion. The classic symptoms that people use to justify taking control of an elderly person's life. I felt a cold understanding settle over me like a shroud. Kevin, I need you to listen to me carefully. I am not confused. I don't have memory problems, and I definitely don't have health issues that require isolation. Silence on the other end. Then, Grandma, are you sure you are okay? You are kind of scaring me. I didn't want to drag Kevin into whatever this was. Not yet, not until I understood the full scope of what Rachel had done. I love you, I said instead. Love you too, Grandma. Maybe I should call Mom, ask her to check on you. No, I said quickly. Don't do that. I will talk to her myself. After I hung up, I sat in the quiet for a long time. The house felt different now, like it was holding its breath, like it was waiting for something to happen. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I got angry. Really, truly angry. The Social Security office was designed to crush hope. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like dying insects. The air smelled like defeat and industrial disinfectant. I had been waiting for 3 hours, clutching my folder of documents like a life preserver. The waiting room was filled with people who looked like they had been beaten down by bureaucracy. A young mother with 2 crying children trying to get disability benefits approved. An elderly man arguing with a clerk about a lost pension check. A woman about my age, staring blankly at forms she couldn't understand. When they finally called my number B-47, the clerk was a tired, looking woman named Susan with dark circles under her eyes and the expression of someone who had seen every kind of human misery the system could produce. What can I help you with today? I need to correct an error in my file. Someone reported me deceased. But as you can see, I am very much alive. Susan's fingers clicked across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. Then stopped. Her eyebrows rose slightly. Eleanor Hartwell. Social Security number ending in 4782. That is me. Says here you died, the 15th of March from complications related to pneumonia. Death certificate was filed by, she squinted at the screen. Rachel Morse, listed as next of kin and power of attorney. The room tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. She filed a death certificate. According to this, yes, madam. I am sorry for your loss, Susan said automatically. Then caught herself. I mean, this is very unusual. I am the loss, I said, louder than I meant to. The other people in line turned to stare, and I want to know what else my daughter did while I was supposedly dead. Susan glanced around nervously, then leaned forward and lowered her voice. "Mrs. Hartwell, if what you are saying is true, this is a very serious matter. Someone has committed federal fraud." That is when Susan told me about the benefits that had been rerouted to Rachel's address, the life insurance claim that had been processed and paid out, the bank accounts that had been flagged for estate closure, the pension payments that had been redirected. Rachel hadn't just declared me dead. She had been cashing in on it for 4 months. "How much money are we talking about?" I asked. Susan's face was grim. "I cannot give you exact figures here, but substantial. Life insurance alone was probably around $75,000, plus monthly benefits, pension. We are looking at potentially over $100,000. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. All those years, I had scrimped and saved, denying myself small luxuries so I could leave something behind for Rachel and Kevin. All those nights, Harold and I had sat at the kitchen table, planning for our future, making sure we would have enough for retirement and enough left over to help our family. Rachel had decided she didn't want to wait for me to actually die. "What do I need to do to fix this?" "First, we need to document that you are alive. I will need multiple forms of ID, proof of residence, medical records if possible. Then we will need to file a formal complaint and launch an investigation." "And how long will that take?" Susan's expression was sympathetic but realistic. "Months, maybe longer. This kind of fraud case has to go through multiple agencies: Social Security, FBI, local police, insurance companies. What am I supposed to live on in the meantime?" "I wish I had a better answer for you, Mrs. Hartwell, but until we can prove the death certificate was fraudulent and reverse all the account closures, you are essentially financially frozen." I left the Social Security office feeling more overwhelmed than when I had arrived. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot. I sat in my car for a long time, trying to process the magnitude of what Rachel had done. She hadn't just stolen my money, she had stolen my entire identity, my existence, my right to live in the world as a recognized human being. Every system, every institution, every piece of bureaucracy that acknowledged I was alive had been systematically corrupted. The lawyer's office felt like stepping back in time. Wood paneling, brass fixtures, the smell of old leather, and older secrets. Margaret Carlyle had been Harold's attorney back when we bought our first house in 1978. She was retired now, pushing 85 herself, but she had agreed to see me as a favor to Harold's memory. "Eleanor, dear God." She stood up from behind her massive mahogany desk, her white hair perfectly coiffed despite her age. "I heard you died, so did everyone else apparently." Margaret's office was exactly as I remembered it from 30 years ago. The same law books, lining the walls, the same Persian rug, the same brass desk lamp that cast warm pools of light across stacks of legal documents. The only thing that had changed was Margaret herself, now moving more slowly, her once sharp eyes slightly clouded with cataracts. "Sit, sit," she said, gesturing to the leather chair across from her desk. "Tell me everything." I spread the documents across her desk, like evidence at a crime scene. The pharmacy printout showing my deceased status, the Social Security documentation, the bank statements I had managed to obtain showing account closures, the death certificate I had requested from the county recorder's office, complete with Rachel's signature as the informant. Margaret put on her reading glasses and examined everything with the methodical precision of someone who had spent 50 years untangling legal messes. Her lips pressed into a thin line as she read, and I could see the anger building behind her professional composure. "This is fraud," she said finally. "Clear, deliberate, premeditated fraud. Your daughter used the power of attorney you granted her to declare you deceased, then claimed your benefits and insurance money. Can you fix it?" Margaret removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. "We can try. But Eleanor, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about correcting paperwork. This is about family. What we are talking about here will likely result in criminal charges against Rachel. Are you prepared for what comes next?" I thought about Rachel as a little girl, clutching my hand during thunderstorms. about the years I worked double shifts to afford her dance lessons, her school trips, her prom dress, about the college tuition I paid, the wedding I funded, the down payment I helped with for her house when she got married. I thought about Kevin and how this would destroy his image of his mother, about the family gatherings that would never happen again, about the granddaughter, in-law I would never meet, the great-grandchildren who would grow up thinking I was the villain who sent their grandmother to prison. She made her choice, I said. Now I am making mine. Margaret nodded slowly. Then let's bring you back from the dead. The process of proving I was alive turned out to be surprisingly complicated. It is remarkably easy to be declared dead in America, but coming back to life requires navigating a bureaucratic maze that would challenge Dante. Margaret started with the death certificate, filing a motion with the county court to have it declared fraudulent and voided. That required affidavits from me, from my doctor, from neighbors who could testify they had seen me alive. After my supposed date of death, Mrs. Chen from next door was delighted to help. I knew something was wrong, she said, signing her statement with a flourish. Your daughter came by 3 months ago asking about your mail, saying she needed to forward it because you had moved to a care facility. But I saw you working in your garden just last week. Dr. Rodriguez was less amused but equally cooperative. This is unconscionable, he said, reviewing my medical records. According to this death certificate, you died of pneumonia complications. I have been your physician for 8 years, Mrs. Hartwell. You have never had pneumonia. You are in excellent health for your age. The insurance company was the most resistant to my resurrection. I spent 2 hours on hold before finally reaching a supervisor named James, who seemed personally offended by my continued existence. Mrs. Hartwell, I understand your frustration, but we processed a valid death claim based on official documentation. The beneficiary provided a certified death certificate, power of attorney, and all required paperwork. The beneficiary is my daughter, who filed a false death certificate. That is a very serious accusation. Do you have proof the certificate is fraudulent? I am sitting here talking to you. Isn't that proof enough? A long pause. We will need to launch our own investigation. In the meantime, the claim payout is frozen pending review. Frozen, my life insurance money, meant to provide security for my family, was frozen in legal limbo, while bureaucrats decided whether I was sufficiently alive to have an opinion about my own death. The hardest part wasn't proving I was alive. It was discovering how thoroughly Rachel had erased me from the systems that had once acknowledged my existence. The electric company had transferred my service to her name. Due to the death of the primary account holder, they explained when I called, my doctor's office had closed my file and transferred my records to Rachel. At the family's request, the receptionist said, even my library card had been deactivated. Apparently, dead people cannot check out books. The librarian, Mrs. Patterson, was mortified when I appeared at the circulation desk. Oh my heavens, Eleanor, we heard. Your daughter came in and told us. She said you had passed, and she was handling your affairs. What exactly did she tell you? That you had died quietly at home. She seemed so grief-stricken, she even donated all your checked out books to our collection in your memory. Each revelation felt like another small death, not just bureaucratic erasure, but proof that my own daughter had planned this meticulously. She had thought through every detail of what would happen after she declared me gone. Every institution that would need to be notified. Every account that would need to be closed. She had been thorough professional. Cold Margaret worked with the efficiency of someone half her age. Within a week, she had filed motions to reverse the death certificate, reclaim my Social Security benefits, and freeze the insurance payout. She would also done something else that made my stomach clench with anxiety. I have reported this to the district attorney, she said during our follow-up meeting. Elder abuse. Insurance fraud. Identity theft, these are serious felonies. Eleanor, we are not just talking about civil remedies here. She is going to be arrested. Very likely, the DA's office takes financial crimes against the elderly seriously, especially when they involve this level of fraud. We are talking about federal charges here. And Kevin? Margaret's expression softened. There is no evidence he was involved. In fact, his testimony about what his mother told him could be crucial to proving she acted with intent to deceive. I thought about Kevin, about how this would destroy his image of his mother, about the family gatherings that would never happen again, about the college tuition that had probably been paid with my stolen life insurance money. I am ready, I said. But I wasn't. Not really. How do you prepare to watch your own daughter get arrested for stealing your life? The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was having coffee and trying to read a book I had borrowed from Mrs. Chen, since my library privileges were apparently still suspended pending my official resurrection. Margaret's voice was tight, with barely controlled anger. They arrested Rachel this morning. She has been charged with insurance fraud, filing false documents, and elder financial abuse. I set down my coffee cup with hands that were suddenly shaking. Where, at her workplace, the bank where she works as a loan officer, apparently, they also terminated her employment effective immediately. Hard to trust someone with other people's money when they have defrauded their own mother. I should have felt vindicated, justice being served, the system working as it was supposed to. Instead, I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and left only an empty shell. What happens now? Arraignment tomorrow. She will probably make bail first offense, family situation, community ties. But Eleanor, there is something else. I waited, dreading whatever was coming next. Kevin called the office. He wants to see you. My grandson stood on my front porch, looking like he had aged 10 years in 10 days. His usually perfect hair was disheveled. His eyes red, rimmed from crying, or lack of sleep, or both. The confident young man who had hugged me goodbye at Christmas was gone, replaced by someone who looked lost and broken. "Grandma L," he said, and his voice cracked like it used to when he was 12 and upset about something at school. I opened the door wider. "Come in, honey." We sat in my tiny living room, the space between us filled with everything that had been broken and couldn't be put back together. Kevin stared at his hands, at the coffee table, at everything except me. "I didn't know," he said finally. "I swear to God, I didn't know what she did. I believe you. She told me you were sick, that you were confused, saying strange things. She said the doctor thought it was best if you had some space, some quiet time to recover." He looked up at me then, and I saw Harold in his eyes, the same stubborn integrity that had driven my husband to walk 5 miles home rather than take a ride from someone who had been drinking. "What did you think when you stopped hearing from me?" His face crumpled. "I thought you didn't want to see me anymore. I thought maybe I had done something wrong, or maybe you were mad at me about something. Mom said elderly people sometimes withdraw from family when they are dealing with health issues. Oh, sweetheart, she has been paying for my college with your insurance money, hasn't she?" I nodded, watching the realization hit him like a physical blow. He pulled his hands away from mine, buried his face in them. "I am going to have to drop out. I cannot take money that was stolen from you. Kevin, look at me." When he raised his head, I saw the same moral compass that had made me proud of Harold for 43 years of marriage. "You didn't steal anything," I said. "You were lied to. There is a difference, but I benefited from it. And now you know, what you do next is what matters." We talked for 3 hours, about Rachel's growing desperation over money after her divorce, about the lies she had told him about my supposed health problems, about the will she had shown him that supposedly left everything to charity, explaining why he shouldn't expect an inheritance. "She made it seem like you had cut us out," he said, "like you blamed us for Dad leaving, or resented having to help with my college expenses." Rachel's ex-husband had abandoned them when Kevin was 10, leaving her with a mountain of debt and a son to raise alone. I had never blamed Kevin for his father's failures, but apparently Rachel had needed a scapegoat for her financial struggles. "She said you were getting paranoid about money," suspicious of everyone, that you had started thinking the family was only interested in your bank account. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. Rachel had convinced Kevin I was the one obsessed with money, while she systematically stole every penny I had. When Kevin finally left, he hugged me tighter than he had since he was little. "I love you, Grandma. I am sorry I didn't fight harder to see you. I should have known something was wrong. I love you too. And Kevin, you are going to finish college. I will figure out how to pay for it legally. I cannot let you do that. You are not letting me do anything. I am choosing to do it." There is a difference. After he left, I sat in Harold's old chair and cried for the first time since this whole nightmare began. Not for the money Rachel had stolen, but for the family that was now broken beyond repair. The trial was scheduled for fall, but Rachel's attorney wanted to deal. David Morrison was a slick criminal defense lawyer with an expensive suit and the kind of smile that made you want to count your fingers after shaking his hand. "My client is willing to plead guilty to the insurance fraud charge in exchange for dropping the elder abuse charges," he told Margaret during a pretrial conference. "Why would we agree to that?" "Because elder abuse carries a heavier sentence. My client is a single mother, first-time offender, pillar of the community. She made a mistake in a moment of financial desperation. She never intended to harm her mother. She declared her mother dead and cashed in her life insurance." Margaret replied dryly, "How is that not harm?" Morrison's smile never wavered. "Mrs. Hartwell is alive and well. No actual harm was done, except for the 4 months she spent unable to access her own money, get medical care, or exist as a legal person. Financial inconvenience. We are prepared to pay full restitution plus interest." Margaret smiled grimly. "We are going to trial, but we never made it to trial." 3 days before jury selection, Morrison called with a new offer: full restitution, guilty plea to all charges, and a recorded admission of what she did. Why the sudden change of heart? Margaret's smile was sharp as a blade. "Apparently, someone leaked the story to Channel 7. Your resurrection made the evening news last night. Rachel's been fired from her job at the bank, and the publicity isn't exactly helping her case." The recorded admission was harder to listen to than I had expected. Rachel's voice, flat and emotionless, reciting the steps she had taken to erase me from official existence. "I used the power of attorney. My mother had granted me to file a death certificate with the county recorder's office. I contacted the insurance company and submitted a claim for the life insurance benefit. I used those funds to pay for my son's college tuition and other family expenses." "Why did you believe this was justified?" the prosecutor asked. A long pause. Then, in a voice so cold it didn't sound like my daughter at all, "I thought she would die soon anyway. She is old. She has health problems. I didn't want to wait and risk the insurance money going to taxes or medical expenses. She thought I would die soon anyway." I turned off the recording before it finished. Some truths are too sharp to hear more than once. The restitution check arrived on a Thursday, $75,000, minus legal fees and court costs. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the price of learning who my daughter really was. I deposited the money and immediately wrote a check to Kevin's college for his remaining tuition. Then I drove to Margaret's office and had her draw up a new will. No family members listed as beneficiaries, no power of attorney grants to anyone. Everything going to the local literacy program where I had volunteered for years, with Margaret as executor. "You sure about this?" she asked. "I am sure that blood relation doesn't guarantee love or honesty or decency." "What about Kevin?" "Kevin can make his own way. It will be better for him." That evening, Kevin called. "Grandma, I heard about the will change. News travels fast in small towns. Are you angry?" "No," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "I am proud of you for not letting anyone else have the power to erase you again." Smart boy. He understood that the real issue wasn't money, but control power. The right to exist on my own terms. Rachel tried to contact me once after the sentencing. A letter forwarded through Margaret's office, probably because she didn't want to risk a restraining order violation by contacting me directly. I didn't open it. Some apologies come too late, and some bridges burn too completely to rebuild. Instead, I moved out of the duplex and into a small apartment at Sunset Manor, an independent living facility with a strong community and better security. Not because I was afraid of Rachel, but because I was tired of being alone. My new neighbors were fascinating. Martha, who had been a war correspondent in Vietnam. Bob, who had designed roller coasters for 30 years. Linda, who would run a horse rescue ranch. Nancy, who had been a union organizer back when women weren't supposed to have opinions about labor relations. None of them tried to declare me dead. It was refreshing. 6 months after the trial, Kevin graduated summa cum laude with a degree in social work. He sent me a picture of himself in cap and gown, holding a diploma I had helped pay for with honestly earned money. He is working now with elderly clients, helping them navigate the same bureaucratic systems that nearly erased me. Sometimes he calls for advice about particularly difficult cases. Remember, I tell him, being old doesn't mean being helpless, and family doesn't always mean safe. I am 75 now, officially and verifiably alive. My new doctor has all my correct information. My Social Security benefits are deposited on schedule. My library card works perfectly. I have even gotten my medication situation sorted out, though I had to switch pharmacies because the staff at Peterson's still looked at me like I was Lazarus every time I walked in. Most importantly, I learned something valuable. You cannot be erased unless you let yourself disappear. Rachel counted on my silence, my compliance, my willingness to fade quietly into the background of her life. She was wrong. Some mornings, I wake up and feel grateful for what happened, not for the betrayal itself, but for discovering I was stronger than I knew, for learning that I could fight back, could refuse to be written out of my own story. I volunteer now at the senior center, helping other elderly people understand their rights and recognize the warning signs of financial abuse. You would be amazed how common it is children who see their aging parents as inconvenient obstacles rather than human beings deserving respect. But you would also be amazed how many fight back once they understand they can. Last week, a woman named Dorothy came to one of my workshops. Her son had been forging her signature on checks, draining her account bit by bit while telling everyone she was getting confused and couldn't manage her own affairs. I thought I was being paranoid, she said. Trust your instincts, I told her, and document everything. The people who want to erase you are counting on your silence. She has filed a police report now, changed her bank passwords, revoked her power of attorney. She is fighting back because that is what we do. We refuse to be erased. We refuse to go quietly. We refuse to let anyone, even family, write the ending to our stories. I am not the same woman who walked into that pharmacy and learned she was dead. I am sharper now, warier, less trusting, but I am also more alive than I have been in years. And if someone tries to bury me again, well, they will discover I have learned how to climb out of graves. Rachel lost more than money when she declared me dead. She lost a mother who would have helped her if she had just asked. Honestly, she lost a relationship that could have been repaired with truth instead of lies. But mostly, she lost the respect of her own son, who now sees her clearly for what she chose to become. The last I heard, she had moved to another state, started over with a new job and a new story about herself. I hope she has learned something from what happened. I hope she has become someone better, but mostly, I don't think about her at all. I am too busy living. Officially, legally, undeniably living, and no one can take that away from me again. My name is Eleanor Hartwell. I am 75 years old. I am alive, and I am done being erased by people who are supposed to love me. If this story resonated with you, if you have ever felt discarded or forgotten by family members, know that you have more power than you realize. You have the right to exist, to matter, to take up space in this world regardless of your age. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise, and don't let anyone else write your ending. What is your experience with family who didn't value your worth? Share your story in the comments. Your voice matters, and someone else might need to hear that they are not alone in fighting for their dignity.